IB Environmental students. Today we're going to be talking about different types of resources and their natural capital, which is all in Objective 3.2. Let's begin. So in doing this, we first have to think about different types of economic views, because economics is related to resources. So in a traditional economy, it's going to be very much based on how much land is available, the type and the types of labor and the amount of labor, and other sorts of capital. Capital refers to any sort of assets. And in this traditional economy, the environment is really just thought of as a set of resources within a larger economic sphere. When you can look in this diagram, there are some relationships between the people, the labor, and these goods and services, but it's not very complicated. The next type of economic view is an environmental view, and this is going to be different because the environment is more focused upon, because the environment will be providing goods and services that humans depend, and that focus is going to hopefully allow humans to be thinking about any sort of limits on environmental resources and constrain the economy based on that. And hopefully this is a little bit more sustainable. In the previous traditional view, it is much more likely that the environment will be overused, those resources, and tragedy of the commons might be possible. In this view, hopefully not. So, in thinking about this type of view, the economic production will therefore be the process of converting the natural world into manufactured world, where trees will then be turned into paper, and then eventually the paper could get to be trashed or hopefully even recycled. And in thinking about this, we could say how environmental is the viewpoint versus how maybe not so much. And we can relate it to all sorts of, is it technocentric, anthropocentric, ecocentric? So there's a lot of spectrums within this. But in talking about the economics, we also need to have a couple more terms. And the first term we're going to look into is natural income, which you might see the word income and immediately think money, money, money. Well, take that away from your mind. That's not what we're really focusing on here. We're really going to be focusing on the fact that this nature is providing us goods and services, this yellow stuff. Natural income is indefinitely available goods and services, and they're mostly going to be these two types of resources we'll talk about in a second. So, goods are marketable commodities, such as timber, grain, meat. Services are different things that the environment does for us that are really awesome. Ecological and life support. For instance, think about wetlands, such as Huntley Meadows. Huntley Meadow wetlands was really great because it provides flood protection for Fairfax, and even a little bit of pollution that might enter there might get cleaned nicely because of the type of soil that's there. Those are services that the environment does for us. Goods are things that it might produce. It produces some food, it produces some recreation. So we can really look into this, and those goods and services, they are the natural income. They will eventually potentially either save us money or make us money, but natural income is just the goods and services component. Some other things that we have to think about then, what is natural capital? Well, natural capital is the standing stock. Stock, don't forget, means how much of that type of material is there. So, if we think about Huntley Meadow, we can think about how much forest is there. How much trees are there? Those are the standing stock of that carbon. We also have fish. Let's say at the Chesapeake Bay, we're trying the fish. How much is there? That's the amount of goods that we have available. Natural income is more so than referring to the flows. What kind of things is it doing for us? So is it going to provide us harvests of timber? Can we get fish from it? So the income is kind of what am I getting out of it? The capital is what is there. What am I getting out of it? What is available? What we have to understand is both of these things, both the stock and how much we're taking out of the stock, have to be done sustainably. What does that look like? We will talk about in another podcast or notes, because if we don't use a sustainable rate or take out through a flow at the right amount, we might have a tragedy of the commons problem. In talking about this, there's three major types of natural capital resources, and they are differing based on how they work. The first type is renewable natural capital. These are all living things. They can also be thought of as ecosystems because ecosystems have living things too. They are all going to be able to self-produce and self-maintain as long as humans aren't impacting them too much. Meaning a tree can, if we cut off a branch, it'll come back some. Fish, if we eat some of the fish out of this population, they will reproduce and there will be more. They all depend either directly or indirectly on solar energy because they're all going to be related to food chains. Lastly, all of them are probably going to, in some shape or form, provide some services, whether it's that flood protection or even trees are going to help us with climate regulation. Here are some really good examples of this type of natural capital, renewable. Notice that these are all living thing products. Wood, produce, meaning like our fruit and vegetables, meat products, whether it's fish or chicken. All these things are renewable because we can get more of them within a reasonable time frame for the most part. This next kind is replenishable. It is not alive, and usually it depends on solar energy for its process, which is renewing. Groundwater is a wonderful example that we're going to, right now in the year, understand. The groundwater we get and rely on is really drinking water, and a lot of the amount of drinking water depends on how much is recharging after a rainfall. If we take too much groundwater out of our well, for instance, we are going to potentially have a tragedy of the commons issue and run out of this resource. If we are using a reasonable rate and we're letting enough rainfall occur, it will over time renew or replenish. It is not alive, so it is not renewable, but it can come back within a reasonable time if we let it, so it's replenishable. Ozone we'll learn about more in the year, but it is also something that can replenish. The last type of resource is non-renewable. This is because it is going to need liquidation, and it takes some time and energy to do so, but it also takes so long to occur in the first place and to replenish. So this amount of time is so long that we assume that it's not coming back. It's not even coming back in our lifetimes, let alone the next generation's lifetime, let alone the next generation's lifetime. So we have to be very careful. Because these don't come back, these examples, fossil fuels, oil, coal, metals, and other minerals, all these things we have to be very careful about how much we use them because they're not coming back. We only have so much of them. So the value of resources changes over time. You should write down why, because of culture, economics, technology, all those things are going to influence. Write down at least one of these examples. First one, uranium. We didn't care about uranium a long time ago, but now we do because of nuclear technology. Now we can make a lot of money off of it. Bluefin tuna is another example of a type of resource. This one is renewable because it's living. Prior to this time, there were a lot of them, but then people got excited about sport fishing this big, big fish that's kind of like the lion of the sea. And now, because there's so few of them left, the Japanese got almost all of them out of the water, and because they're so limited, they can sell them for butt tons of money, which is crazy. Solar power wasn't a big deal until the space race in the 60s, and then in the 70s, because of other types of non-renewable energy, they kind of made it impossible to get oil easily. And then prices have changed over time, which have made solar power go in and out of favor. And now, because there's not a lot of oil left, so we think, the prices are more desirable to do solar power stuff. So things change over time, and it also depends on the type of natural capital. Is it renewable? Is it non-renewable? And so forth. But our values on them really are interesting to think about. Some of us have ecological value for some of these resources. Do they give us these goods and services? This is intrinsic. Think about those examples like, does it clean up my waste or my pollution? Is it flood control? Is it pollution? Is it erosion control? I can also think about it as just pure economic value. Am I getting money off of this thing? These are very extrinsic. It's formal. I can make money. And then lastly, is it giving me just spiritual awesomeness? Am I going outside and having a great place to hike? Am I being able to be religious or philosophical in this spot? What kind of use does it have? All of these things are really interesting to think about because it depends on the place, right? What aspects do you think are most valued in our society? I don't know. I think a lot of our industrialized society is really thinking about the economic formal value, and maybe this one, and depending on the person, the aesthetic. And then what about other societies? This is stuff we will talk about in class, and it's going to relate to sustainability. Great job, guys. See you in class.